Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy XIV video. This time we're talking about World Visit, and this time we're going to be talking specifically about the success and indeed failure of the system. Now, it's harsh to actually call something a failure when the system itself went really flawlessly. As soon as we logged on yesterday, we had a little bit of congestion to log into the game, but regardless, the actual system itself worked really well. Simply going to an Aetheryte and choosing to go to a different world was as simple as just clicking, waiting a few seconds, and you were instantly there. I was really surprised, and pleasantly surprised at that, to see how quick it was to teleport between those worlds, considering these are entirely different servers on your data center. Now, the data center splits in particular have no doubt helped make this possible, considering there are easily half as many destinations as there would have been if the World Visit system had come in without the server split. Now, EU had the server split for longer than America, and America got World Visit on the same day as their server splits, so it's interesting to see that there are a few differences and there are a lot more bugs on the American side, but that was to be expected. But in general, the whole thing was implemented quite successfully. What I would like to say though is that there was quite a few issues with the system that kind of got addressed, and hopefully some get addressed shortly. So today, the 24th of April, Final Fantasy XIV did update some back-end systems, and in particular they applied some hotfixes to, as they say, lay the groundwork for addressing the issue concerning World Visit that they didn't anticipate for. So what they didn't imagine would be the sheer volume of players actually utilising the feature, and this should have been expected considering it was day one, but the games are always like this. There's a new system or new feature added, everybody tries it out. This should sort of peter out eventually, and I should see lower numbers of people using it, potentially. It depends on how useful this is. So far, I'm seeing a lot of people using this as a market board tool rather than much else, but there are some people actually doing hunts and treasure maps and various other things and just hanging out in other players' worlds, which I have to say has even brought some of the more lesser population areas on your world to full life. So the main issue that occurred yesterday, that presumably will occur repeatedly, is that at the peak times, at least on Europe, when people were coming back from work, so about 5 PM, 6 PM, that sort of time, all the way up until about midnight, you would actually see some huge congestion. I was talking to one individual last night in Limsa Laminsa, and he was playing music, and I was hanging out with him and some of his friends, and they were all viewers, which was really nice to be able to do, by the way. But a realization soon came that this person was trapped on our world. It turns out that when you transfer to another world, if your own world is suffering from congestion, in which case Moogle was yesterday, you actually have to queue to return to your own server. So this person had actually been in a queue for over 3 hours and was still there at midnight, and finally gave up and went to bed. So whether or not he actually got back, as far as I know, if you log out and log back in, you will essentially still be in the same world, which is a very interesting design choice, and I suppose it's more immersive that way, but you have to remember to actually come back. So whether or not this will happen again today, I mean, it's likely, to be honest, but they are aware of it. So they continued to say these issues were a result of congestion from many world visits occurring during login rushes, which caused high server load on the database server. Now that we have been able to gather information from past world visit system usage, we can somewhat predict the amount of load caused on the servers, which we will monitor and plan to control congestion as necessary by taking steps, such as limiting the number of visits during peak hours. We will continue to monitor the situation and put in our full efforts to ensure an enjoyable gaming experience for our players. So note that this doesn't have an instant fix, and it's still going to be like this during peak times, so it's sort of like a PSA that you might want to consider not transferring at those peak times unless you have nothing to do on your own server. Now bear in mind you'll still be able to do raids, etc., but to actually get back to your server, this queue requires you to stay within the location of the Aetheryte that you actually use to transfer transfer between worlds, i.e. in Gridania, Uldar or Limsa Lominsa. So what this essentially means is that you're not able to use the duty finder, party finder, pretty much anything apart from hang around in that same area. Now their proposed solution of limiting the amount of players who can actually transfer doesn't negate the fact that some people might have already transferred before the peak time, and the real trouble is actually getting back. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do with this. I think this is going to be a long-term problem. I don't think this is going to have an easy solution other than eventually increasing their server structure. And to be honest, by the looks of it, it certainly would need something like that. And I think with the sort of numbers we're seeing, if this continues, then you can expect them to make some changes depending on that. It turned out to be a very popular system so far. Either way, let me know what you think about World Visit. Were you stuck on another player's world, unable to get home? Let me know below, and I'll see you all next time.